Blessed be, welcome to the Circle of Heka. I'm Lady Amaris. So drugs and witchcraft. Now, I'm about to open probably a big can of worms here because everyone has their opinion on drugs and witchcraft, and I'm just going to put mine into the mix. So just before we start, I don't care what anyone does in their privacy of their own home, or what anyone does in their own circles. That's up to you. But this is a video on my opinion and what is acceptable and what's not acceptable within the Circle of Heka, and just maybe some things to think about and things to ponder. So I don't really mind if you take on what I'm going to say on board or not. It doesn't sway me one way or the other, but just know that I don't mind what you do. What you do is what you do. This is just information for my members and my future members, and if anyone who is interested in what I think. So drugs and witchcraft have a long tradition. Any spiritual tradition you go back to day dot, there is some form of drug involved. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean that witches are all a bunch of druggies. I remember I went to an event, and this guy kind of, sidled up to me, and he's like,
"Yeah, so you witches, had a party."
Okay.
Yeah. So have you done peyote and ayahuasca? That's great. Have you done that? Yeah. Here. You want to smoke?
And I was like, okay. It wasn't necessarily a pagan event, but or a witchcraft event, but it was kind of just weird that it's the assumption that witches know how to get down. Well, we do, but it's not something that we do every day, and it's not something that I do every day. Witchcraft and any spiritual process has a tradition of having some kind of mind-altering drug, if they say, as part of the path. You have the shamans who will use different herbs, different entheogens to facilitate talking to Great Spirit. You would have witches of old using flying ointments, mixed in with henbane and belladonna and all of those types of poisonous plants to facilitate the idea of crossing the hedge or going to the other world, to the spirit world. So all of these drugs have the common theme of it's going to the spirit world. Now, if you're a shaman, you would use say peyote or maybe ayahuasca or magic mushrooms or whatever, psilocybin, whatever it is that you happen to be using as part of your tradition. Now, when you are using that sort of thing, it's not something that's done every day. It's not a weekly occurrence. It's not like that. It would be done maybe once a year, maybe twice a year, and only because there's a specific need for it to be done. And with that, it would mean that there was a process that happened. There would be a cleansing process. There would be rituals that were involved before that came about. So you would have that cleansing, and you would have that the actual mind. Your mind would be on the need that you'll be taking this drug for, or taking the peyote or the ayahuasca. There would be that process that would be involved. So you'd be very mindful of what it is, the question that you needed answered, or whatever process needed to be facilitated by going to the other world, going to the spirit world. So it wasn't something that was happening regularly. It wasn't something that was done just willy-nilly off the spur of the moment, or, you know, oh, I'm bored, what can we do? Oh, you know, hey, let's go down to the local ayahuasca tent and you know, do that sort of thing. But so when it comes to those sorts of practices, it is done, but it's done in a mindful, respectful, and ritual manner. It's not something that's done, you know, on a weekend if you've, you know, got nothing else to do, or, you know, a group of friends. You know, you've tried every drug on the list, and you know, ayahuasca is the next thing, next big hit. So it's not about that. The same as the flying ointments that are used within witchcraft. They're not used like, you know, once a week, or, you know, they're used for special occasions, special things, special needs that need to happen. Pretty much because they are so poisonous and so noxious that one, you have to be careful, you have to be prepared, you have to know what it is you're doing, and two, doing that to yourself on such a regular basis would just wreck your body. You would be just doing it at you know, at the random times that you may do it takes a lot out of your system, and it takes a while for you to get back. So if you're continually doing that, continually kind of hammering your body almost, then your system is going to start to break down, and you're going to start to get unwell, and when you start to get unwell and you're doing those sorts of things, then that's when the idea that you can open yourself up to certain types of you know, psychosis, or certain types of energies. So there's another thing that you need to be aware of when you're taking these kinds of drugs, is that you make sure that you have that preparation. Now, when I teach in my circles, there is a very large amount when you're starting out is of getting rid of your baggage. And in that respect is accepting some of the things that you have within yourself, you know, looking at your shadow, doing all of that work, so that later on you are cleaner and more able to take on some of these drugs, if that's the course that you want to go, if that's the path that you want to go to. Then you will be in a better place psychologically, physically, mentally, to take those drugs than you would be if you didn't take hold of your baggage, and didn't look at your shadow, didn't look at yourself with an analytical eye. Because when you do take those drugs, especially when it comes to like ayahuasca is a purging drug. So the very first things that would happen when someone's taking it is that their body would try and purge all of the toxins within themselves. And it's also about dealing with some of that shadow material, some of that dark side. So what would happen is that your dark side would then become manifest. Now, if you haven't dealt with that, and all of a sudden you get a 3D experience of your shadow that you can't stop, that can be quite confronting. Yeah, but also it has that possibility of fracturing your mind, so that you then become a little bit psychotic. You have the things in the news of people taking certain drugs and having really, really bad side effects. Anything, having marijuana or going in ayahuasca and having bad trips, or however they say it, whatever the lingo is. Well, it makes me sound old, doesn't it? But it is because you're opening up a door really hard, really fast, and the light's rushing in, and all of those things that you may have not dealt with then come rushing out without you having a chance to deal with them in a slow, steady pace, in your own time. They are just thrusted upon you. And these are what these drugs do. They're about purging, they're about making you clean, making you holy, so that once that's done, then you can have that actual real changing spiritual experience. But until you're clean, until you have been purged of all of those toxins, all of that baggage, then it's not going to happen. You'll end up having, you'll end up pooing and vomiting both at the same time, and you'll just end up, having one of those, bad trips, and then nothing will happen. There's a few people that will have, a really expansive experience, but it does have that tendency to go a little bit dark, and that is mainly because the shadow side hasn't been dealt with in a manner that would be appropriate for taking that drug. So my main thing is, and there's lots of preparation that goes into taking these things. It's not a weekend kind of, I'm going on a weekend retreat and we're going to take some ayahuasca, or we're going on a holiday and one of the things in the itinerary is day one, go boozing, day 2 ayahuasca, day 3 let's have some more booze. It's not like that. It's not a tick box that you should be ticking because you are on a path, or you think that that's what you do to be spiritual. There's also that risk of, if you're doing too much and you're not taking it in a sacred manner, then, as I said, you can open yourself up to psychosis. You can open yourself up too much, too fast, and you're not able to deal with it. And that's when people start, going a little bit moo, and going into the booby hatch and being just because they can't assimilate what they're seeing and what they're feeling in a proper manner. It's too fast. Now, so in regards to taking drugs, many of these drugs are taken to help facilitate a process, to almost do a little bit of a jump ahead, so that you can see where it is that you're looking to go, or what you're trying to experience in a more slow and steady pace. So all of the meditations, all of the different rituals that you are encouraged to do are there to help you to reach that level. But these drugs are used to get there quickly. They're used to break past those barriers, break past the conscious mind, so to speak, and get there fast, which is why they are usually used at a time of need, when you really need to do something that can't be done in the normal process. So using drugs over and over and over again then starts to get into that process where you can't do your magic without the drugs. You can't perform without this substance within yourself, because it gives you that feeling of being witchy or magical or whatever it is, or helps you to facilitate that getting to that area. But what happens is that as you're taking this drug, you're less likely to be doing the work that you need to get to that area, and also your body makes its own DMT and or the euphoric drugs that go through the body. Your body makes it themselves. This drug actually, or drugs actually trigger those receptors within our bodies. Now, if you're continually triggering those receptors with an artificial substance, then your body decides not to make it itself, if that makes any sense. So what happens is you need more and more and more and more of the substance to get the same effect that you did originally, because your body has lost the ability to make it itself. So that's the problem with any person who takes drugs, doesn't matter what the drug is that the first initial high is never the same. You always have to get more and more and more to try and chase that first experience, which is why it's used as a gateway. It's used as a stepping off point for you to kind of go, all right, well, this is what I'm aiming for. This is the experience that I'm aiming for in that mundane process. And because it's because it's an opening up, a quick opening up, it's one of those quick hacks that you see, or quick hacks for witchcraft. So you can bypass all the normal drudgery and get straight into the good stuff. But when you're getting straight into the good stuff, you haven't done the preparation, which means that you're more likely to hurt yourself. It's the same as going, all right, well, I'm fine, I'm going to do this marathon. I haven't trained, haven't even done any exercise for the last 3 years, but I'm going to go and do this marathon. So you do the marathon and then you fall on your face and you've severely injured yourself if you don't actually have a heart attack and die in the process, because you were, I don't know, your ego was a little bit blown out, thinking, oh, well, I can handle this. This is easy. I want to get fast track. I don't want to do all this mundane work of actually exercising and training for the marathon and building up slowly and getting stronger. I just want to go in there straight away. I don't have time for all that shit. So that's when you start getting problems, where you need this. You need this drug in order to witch. You need this drug in order to do any occult kind of working. And if you're a magician, a witch, any kind of magical practitioner, and you need that drug because that helps you to be witchy. The problem there happens is that if you don't have that drug, then what does it mean? That you can't perform a work of magic, you can't do a spell, you can't do a ritual, you can't do anything because you don't have that drug. You've just limited yourself. So you've just limited yourself with a drug that you have thought that is going to expand your possibilities, but now it is a limiting factor. You are shackled by the very thing that you want to use to expand yourself and to free yourself. So there's that double-edged sword that you need to be mindful. You need to have that common sense. You need to have that strength that comes from doing inner work, being confident, and not slipping into relying on anything but yourself, really, to do any kind of work of magic. Because it's used to quickly open doors and you quickly get an effect, then your ego kind of blows out and going, all right, I'm the shit, I'm all that in a bag of chips. So then you start taking more and more and more because you want to be in that zone, and that's when again addiction starts to happen. And you have many famous occultists. Aleister Crowley comes to mind straight away, of taking drugs to facilitate spiritual things, but then becoming a slave to that drug, becoming addicted to that drug, and not being able to reach any of those spiritual parts of himself without that drug. And so again, it's becoming chained by the very thing that you are trying to get your freedom from. So when it comes to drugs within the circle, what the stance is on the Circle of Heka. Now, as I said, I don't care what you do in your own home, but I do care what you do in my circle and in my home. So, or any event that I'm facilitating. So that would be that if you're coming to a circle, you're coming to a ritual, you're coming to and doing some kind of magical working, then you need to be respectful of not only the place that you're going to, but also the energies that you're working with, the gods that you're working with, all of that sort of thing. You need to be respectful. So one, you don't turn up to any of these types of events with booze. You're not boozed up, you're not drunk. Okay, so if you are, if you are drunk, if you're visibly drunk and people can tell, then you will be asked to leave. You'll be given, keys will be taken away from you, and a taxi will be called, and you will be escorted home. The same as if you are taking any other kind of drug. If you turn up and you're all off with the pixies, then you will be asked to leave. Because you're not being respectful of the place, and you're not being respectful of the ritual. Now, if people are having a ritual where at some point some kind of drug was used, then that's fine. But the process of creating a circle, creating a space that is safe and secure for then the facilitation of taking that drug needs to be done, and you need to have all your faculties. You need to be in the right frame of mind, the right space. You can't be kind of all a little bit off, because that's when you're not going to construct your circle properly. You're not going to create that proper space. So when you're not creating that space, you're leaving holes within the armor, and then when you're going off on your journey, on your flying journey, you've just left a space for any kind of energy that is not conducive to you to just slip on in. Okay, so it is about having common sense, thinking about it properly, and going, all right, well, I'm going to construct this circle. Just think how it would be if you decided to do some pottery or whatever. You're usually a pretty good potter, and you've got your potter's wheel, and you're making a cup, or an ashtray, or whatever it is that you make, and you're fine. But then you put these types of drugs into yourself, and then try and do work the pottery wheel, and just see what you create. It may be great. It may be look wonderful, but is it structurally sound? Does it hold water? Can it keep whatever it is that it's supposed to be safe? That's how you have to kind of think about it. Now, so we've done alcohol, we've done other kinds of drugs. Prescription drugs are a slightly different thing. It is a case-by-case basis as to what it is that you need this drug for. If it's something that it is like epilepsy or bipolar or some other kind of neurological disorder, it would mean that yes, you can come into the circle, and you'll have this. Obviously, hopefully, you're taking your drugs, taking your medication, but you would have to just let people know, let people be aware within the circle that that's what you're taking, because when you're having a circle that is very open and to energies, and the new coining for that sort of thing is people who are very sensitive to energies, they're empaths. So if you have that empathic, a highly tuned empathic kind of feeling, then you may start to feel a little bit weird because you are picking up on the drugs that someone is taking. So just making sure that people are aware of this, so that they can put processes in place. If you are taking painkillers because you've hurt yourself, or you're taking other kinds of drugs because you're not well, you're ill, then I would say that one, you could probably stay home. Don't feel the need that you have to come to a circle or have to come to an event. If you are in so much pain that you need a large amount of painkillers, then I would say that you need to rest and recuperate. If it's something that you're taking regularly, then I would kind of think about looking into some other kind of pain management, and not having so large drugs in your body. But that would be something that you would talk to your doctor about. I'm not saying don't take any drugs. If you need to take prescription drugs, please take your drugs. Just form a management system with your doctor as a way to minimise the amount that you need to take. Also, when you're going into a circle and you may be taking a prescription drug that you may not usually take all the time, you might find that your perception, your spiritual or psychic kind of faculties may be a bit off. You may not realise that they are, but they may be a bit off because the drug within your body is kind of making it a little bit out of whack. And many people have reported that being on different kind of painkillers or being on different kinds of drugs do hinder in some respects their psychic faculties. So again, be mindful of that sort of thing as well. You might find that you're not experiencing things or not sensing things the way that you should, or you may be off and you're thinking one thing when actually it's another thing. So just again, be mindful of that drugs do affect your mind, body and spirit. So these other things we've talked about prescription drugs, we've talked about booze. Then there's also the thing that many people use, and usually to relax, and it is being known as a drug for opening up spirituality. Now. And that's marijuana. Now, lots of people are probably going to go, "Oh, you're going to say horrible things about marijuana." Marijuana is a wonderful plant, or hemp is a wonderful plant. It's used for many things. It's used as food. It can be used as shelter. It's used as writing paper, clothes. It is an all-encompassing plant. It can do wonderful things with health, but what I'm putting forward is that marijuana that is grown, say, in your backyard or organically, or marijuana that was back in the day, so to speak, is different to the marijuana that you see today. The marijuana you see today is full of chemicals that are used to facilitate fast growth. They're used to get, and sometimes they're used to accentuate and expand the actual buzz that is gotten from taking or for smoking the marijuana. So you've got lots of chemicals that are within the marijuana itself that then change your body chemistry. They work on your mental and spiritual bodies, and they affect them in an adverse way, more so than they would as a an organic, let's say organic marijuana, as opposed to chemical marijuana or GMO marijuana, if you want to say it. But what happens is that it explodes and shatters your aura, and mainly around the head and the mental. So it's mental and spiritual. So it's usually around the head, and you see lots of like openings within the aura that have been shattered by the use of the marijuana, so. As I said, I'm not saying that don't do it. What I am saying is excessive use of drugs is not a good thing. Using them for the right thing, the right time, the right frame of mind, yes, that's fine, as long as you are, as long as you have common sense and you are, you're respectful of the drug itself and of yourself. But if it's something that is habitual use to the point where you can't function without it, then that means that, as they say, you don't own the drug owns you. So that's something you have to be aware of. And this shattering of the aura, this opening up of different spaces within the aura, is something that happens with continual use. And it means that your aura is pretty much your almost like your immune system, and when you have big holes and they're all shattered immune system, then it means that you are letting things come in, you're letting energies come in, you're letting whatever come in and make you sick. And so again, as I've said, using these drugs expand and open up doorways, but at the same time, if you keep using them, then they are going to be a shackle, and you can't get to those doorways anymore without this drug. So I think I've rambled a bit. Hopefully I've made some sense. Hopefully you get a bit of an idea, is that if you are going to take any of these mind-expanding drugs, or drugs that are used to facilitate certain things within any occult practice, please be careful. Please, as they say, do your research, really thoroughly research it. Make sure you know what it does to yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually before you even put it in your body. And just have common sense. If you're under the age of 18, I'm not sure what it is in other countries, but if you are not an adult, then I would say don't even bother trying any of these things, because it's not being condescending or anything, but until you have reached a certain age, your brain hasn't fully formed yet, so you are then going to start putting things into your body, into your system, that are going to do things to your brain when it's not fully formed, and you do run the risk of actually damaging your brain, and you don't want to damage your brain, especially when it comes to magic. Please don't damage your brain. So have common sense, be respectful of the drug, make sure that you know everything about it and how it's going to actually affect you before you ever start doing it. Make sure that you know what the protocols and what the ideas are about drug use if you are going to any kind of festival, or if you've been invited to any coven. Make sure that you know and you're respectful, and you don't turn up to any kind of work with drugs in your system. If you have been invited to a place and you do have some kind of neurological disorder, like I said, epilepsy or bipolar, please let one of the facilitators know. It's just courtesy, and it's just so that they are aware, especially when there's energies moving around. It can affect you in a way that you may not expect. So just be mindful of those sorts of things. I think I'll leave it here. I think I've rambled a little bit long. I might do another one just to try and break down some of the points that I have said. But as I said, just be respectful. Don't rush into anything, any kind of work of magic. Don't rush into it without knowing the consequences. And blessed be.
If you like this video and want to see more, please click on the links provided. If you think this witchcraft thing may be for you, please subscribe. Blessed be.